Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. There was a woman, broken, beaten down, left in the dark with nothing but her pain. She had lost everything: hope, love, even the will to fight. Life had knocked her down so many times that staying down felt easier than getting back up. But something happened. Something changed. She found a power, not in the world, not in people, not in herself, but in the Word. And when she grasped the gospel, when she held on to the truth of God's promise, she rose again. Listen to me. This isn't just her story. It's your story. It's the story of every single person who's ever felt lost, hopeless, or forgotten. So stay with me, because by the time we're done, you're going to understand exactly why the gospel is not just a message, it's a weapon, it's a foundation. And for those who believe, it's the very thing that gives them the strength to rise again. The gospel isn't just words. It's a force that revives the broken, lifts the weary, and strengthens the soul. Life has a way of breaking people down. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you're there right now. You wake up feeling like the weight of the world is pressing on your chest. The pain, the regret, the loneliness. It all piles up until it feels like you can't take one more step. And what does the world say? Be strong, push through, fake a smile, act like everything's fine. But deep down, you know the truth. You're tired, worn out, weary. You've been fighting battles nobody sees, holding yourself together when you feel like falling apart. And sometimes it feels like no matter how hard you try, you just can't get ahead. Maybe you've lost someone you loved. Maybe you've been betrayed. Maybe life threw you a curveball you never saw coming, and now you're standing in the wreckage, wondering if you'll ever feel whole again. This is where most people break. This is where they stay broken. But let me tell you something. This is exactly where the gospel steps in. Because the gospel doesn't speak to the strong. It speaks to the weak. It doesn't call the ones who have it all together. It calls the ones who have nothing left. The gospel is not for the perfect, the powerful, or the proud. No, the gospel is for the ones who have fallen, the ones who are hurting, the ones who are crying out in the dark, desperate for something, anything to hold on to. And that's why it's so powerful. People think strength is about never falling, but real strength, the kind that lasts, that kind of strength comes from knowing that even when you fall, you can rise again. That's what happened to a woman whose story could have ended in despair. She had been through so much: loss, betrayal, failure. She had hit rock bottom so hard that she thought she would never get up. But when she was at her lowest, when the world had ridden her off, she turned to something greater than herself. She opened the Word. She let the truth of the gospel sink into her heart. And she realized something that changed everything. She wasn't alone. She never was. Because the God of the gospel, He is close to the brokenhearted. He strengthens the weary. He gives power to the weak. And when she clung to that truth, when she believed it, something shifted. The weight didn't disappear overnight. The pain didn't magically vanish, but something inside her changed. She found a strength that didn't come from herself, a strength that wasn't based on circumstances, a strength that wasn't dependent on whether life was easy or hard. It was a strength that came from knowing she was loved, she was seen, and she was not forgotten. That kind of strength, it can't be taken away. Because when life hits you, and it will hit you, you need something deeper than motivation. You need something stronger than willpower. You need a foundation that doesn't crack under pressure. That's what the gospel is. It's not just a set of beliefs. It's not just a book of ancient words. It's living. It's active. It's the very breath of God. speaking into your darkest moments, reminding you that no matter what you've been through, no matter how far you've fallen, no matter how many times you've failed, you are not done yet. Because the same power that raised Jesus from the dead, that power lives in you. The same strength that carried the broken, healed the sick, lifted the hopeless, that strength is available to you right now. So hear me when I say this. You can get back up. You will rise again, not because you're strong enough, but because He is. When life throws its worst at you, faith isn't about avoiding the flames. It's about walking through them and coming out stronger. Everybody wants life to be easy. No one wakes up in the morning and says, I hope today breaks me. Nobody prays for storms, for loss, for betrayal. We all want smooth roads, clear skies, and a life without struggle. But that's not how life works. At some point, life will test you. It will push you to the edge, take things you love and make you question everything you thought you knew. You'll face moments where it feels like the fire is too hot, like the battle is too much, like the weight is too heavy to carry. And in those moments, you have a choice. You can let the fire consume you. Let it take your peace, your hope, your faith. Let it turn you bitter, angry, lost. Or you can walk through it. Not around it, not away from it, through it. Because real faith, the kind that moves mountains, the kind that changes lives, isn't about avoiding the fire. It's about knowing that no matter how hot the flames get, you are not alone in them. Think about the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. 3 men thrown into a furnace so hot that the flames killed the guard standing outside of it. The enemy wanted them to bow. The world wanted them to be afraid, but they stood their ground. They walked into that fire because they knew something that the world didn't understand. God doesn't always put out the fire, but He always steps into it with you. And when the king looked into that furnace, he didn't see 3 men burning, he saw 4 men walking. That's what faith does. It doesn't keep you from ever facing hardship. It gives you the strength to walk through it without being destroyed. The woman in this story, she had every reason to give up. Life had tested her in ways she never imagined. She had been lied to, betrayed, abandoned. She had lost people she thought would always be there. She had dreams that were crushed, prayers that felt unanswered. And when you go through enough pain, when you take enough hits, it's easy to wonder if God is even there. But then she realized something. The fire wasn't proof that God had left her. The fire was proof that He was about to do something greater in her life. Because the fire is where God refines. The fire is where He strengthens. The fire is where He proves that what was meant to break you will only build you. So she did something different. Instead of running from the pain, she faced it. Instead of blaming God, she trusted Him. Instead of letting the fire destroy her, she let it refine her. And when she walked through it, she came out stronger. Because the truth is, fire can do 2 things. It can destroy, or it can refine. It can turn things to ash, or it can purify gold. And the only difference? What you're made of. If you're made of doubt, the fire will take you down. If you're made of fear, the fire will consume you. But if you're made of faith, the fire only makes you stronger. She was tested, but she was not defeated. She was thrown into the flames, but she was not alone. And when she came out the other side, she was not the same woman who walked in. Because the fire didn't break her, it revealed the strength God had put inside her all along. And the same is true for you. You will face fire in this life. You will go through storms that feel endless. You will have moments where you wonder if you have the strength to keep going. But the question isn't whether the fire will come. The question is, will you let it consume you, or will you let it refine you? Because the gospel doesn't promise a life without hardship. It promises that when you go through the fire, you will not be burned. that when the rivers rise, they will not sweep over you, and that when the flames come, you will walk through them and come out stronger than ever before. No failure, no betrayal, no heartbreak is final when God's grace is in the equation. Life has a way of making people believe they are defined by their worst moments. The world will take your mistakes, your failures, and your disappointments and stamp them onto your identity like a permanent label. She's the one who messed up. He's the one who got left behind. She's the one who lost everything. He's the one who will never recover. People love to write final chapters in your life story when God has barely finished the first act. Maybe you know what that feels like. Maybe you've been through something that changed the way you see yourself. Maybe you carry guilt over the past, regret over decisions, shame over things you can't undo. Maybe someone walked away from you and you took it as proof that you weren't enough. Maybe you failed at something big and now you think you're beyond redemption. But here's what the world won't tell you, and here's what the enemy hopes you never realize. God's grace rewrites the story. No matter how far you've fallen, no matter how bad it's gotten, no matter how much you've lost, when grace steps in, the past loses its power over you. Look at Peter. He was one of Jesus' closest disciples. Walked side by side with him, witnessed his miracles, heard his voice, knew his heart. And yet, when the moment came, when Jesus needed him most, Peter denied him. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. If anyone should have been finished, it was Peter. If anyone had a reason to believe he had ruined everything, it was him. But what did Jesus do? Did he cast Peter aside? Did he tell him he was too far gone? No, he restored him. Because grace doesn't keep records of wrongs. Grace doesn't cancel people. Grace doesn't say you failed, so you're done. Grace says, you failed, but I'm not finished with you yet. And that's exactly what the woman in this story had to learn. She had lost more than she could bear. She had trusted people who betrayed her. She had given her heart to those who didn't protect it. She had made choices she wished she could take back. And at one point she believed that was it, that her story was over, that she would always be the woman who was broken, ashamed, unworthy. But then something happened. She encountered grace, not the kind the world gives, the kind that only lasts if you're perfect, the kind that gets taken away when you mess up again. No, she found God's grace, the kind that covers every failure, every flaw, every moment of regret. She realized that the pain of her past did not define her future, that the worst thing she had been through was not the last thing she would experience, that what looked like the end was actually the beginning of something greater. Because with grace, nothing is final. Not betrayal, not heartbreak, not failure. With grace, all things are made new. And that's what happened to her. She let go of the labels the world had put on her. She stopped seeing herself through the lens of her mistakes. She stopped believing the lie that she was beyond redemption. She embraced the truth that God had been waiting for her all along, not with judgment, but with open arms. And when she did that, when she stepped into the grace that had always been available to her, she found something she never thought she would have again: freedom. Freedom from shame. Freedom from regret. Freedom from the idea that her past controlled her future. Because that's what grace does. It doesn't just cover your past, it breaks the chains of it. It doesn't just forgive you, it restores you. It doesn't just erase what happened, it rewrites your story into something greater than you could have imagined. So let me ask you something. What are you still carrying? What weight are you holding on to? What lie have you believed that tells you you're too far gone? Because whatever it is, it's not bigger than grace. No failure is final. No heartbreak is the end. No betrayal can cancel what God has planned for you. So don't let the past define you when grace is trying to set you free. Because when grace is in the equation, your best chapter is still ahead. No matter how far someone has fallen, the gospel reminds us that there is always a way back up. Life has a way of knocking people down so hard that they start to believe they'll never rise again. It whispers lies that tell them they're too broken, too lost, too far gone to ever make a comeback. Maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe you've fallen so many times that getting back up seems impossible. Maybe the mistakes you've made, the things you've been through, the choices that didn't turn out the way you hoped, they haunt you. They define you. They make you feel like there's no way back. That's what the world says. It says you had your chance and you blew it. It says you made your bed, now lie in it. It says people like you don't get second chances. But let me tell you something. The gospel tells a different story. The gospel doesn't speak in condemnation. It speaks in restoration. It doesn't say, you're done. It says, get back up. It doesn't say, you're too far gone. It says, there's a way home. Look at the prodigal son. Here's a young man who had everything, a home, a family, a future. But he wanted something more, so he took his inheritance, walked away, and threw it all away. He wasted it on things that never satisfied, on people who never really cared. And when it was all gone, when he was at his lowest, alone, starving, broken, he thought to himself, I can't go back. I messed up too badly. I'm not worthy anymore. That's what shame does. It convinces you that you can't return to the place you were meant to be. But here's the part that changes everything. Even while the son was lost, the father was waiting. Even when he had nothing left, his father still called him his son. Even before he could utter the words, I'm sorry, the father ran to him, embraced him, and restored him. Not as a servant, not as an outsider, but as his child. That is the gospel. That is the heart of God. And that is the same grace that was waiting for the woman in this story. She had fallen hard. She had made choices that took her down paths she never imagined. She had given her trust to the wrong people, put her hope in the wrong things, believed lies that told her she had no worth. And when it all crumbled, when she found herself at rock bottom, she believed there was no way back. She thought she had gone too far, made too many mistakes, wasted too much time. But then she encountered the truth. She realized that the gospel isn't about how far you've fallen, it's about how far God's love will reach to bring you back. She didn't have to fix herself first. She didn't have to earn her way back. She didn't have to clean up her mess before she was allowed to return. All she had to do was turn around. And when she did, she found that God was already running toward her. Because the gospel isn't for perfect people. It's for the broken, the weary, the lost. It's for the ones who think they're out of chances. It's for the ones who believe they can't come back from where they've been. And when she finally believed that, she didn't just find forgiveness, she found restoration. She found that she was still worthy of love. She found that her past didn't cancel her future. She found that no matter what she had done, God still had a plan for her life. And if that's true for her, it's true for you. No matter where you've been, no matter what you've done, no matter how many times you've fallen, there is a way back. Not because you're good enough, but because God's love is greater than your worst mistake. So if you're sitting in the dark, if you feel like you've lost too much, if you think your story is over, it's not. Because the gospel is proof that falling isn't the end. Getting back up is always an option. True strength isn't found in never falling. It's found in rising again, no matter how many times you've been knocked down. The world has a way of defining strength in a way that makes people feel weak. It tells you that strength is about never showing pain, never making mistakes, never needing help. It tells you that strong people don't struggle, don't cry, don't fall. But that's a lie. Real strength, the kind that lasts, the kind that changes lives, it isn't about pretending you have it all together. It's about getting back up, even when you don't think you can. Life will knock you down. That's a guarantee. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You'll face loss. You'll face heartbreak. You'll face disappointment, betrayal, failure. And when you do, you'll hear two voices. One will tell you to stay down. It will say, this is too much. You can't come back from this. Why even try? It will tell you that getting up isn't worth it, that the pain is too deep, that the damage is too great. But the other voice, the voice of truth, will say, get up, keep going. This is not the end. That voice, that's the voice of the gospel. Because the gospel doesn't promise a life without struggle. It promises that when you fall, you don't have to stay down. Look at David. He was a king, a warrior, a man after God's own heart. But he wasn't perfect. He made mistakes, big ones. He fell hard, but he didn't stay down. Look at Paul. He was once Saul, a man who persecuted Christians. If anyone had a past that should have disqualified them, it was him. But he didn't stay down. Look at Jesus. He was beaten, mocked, and crucified. They thought they had won. They thought it was over. They thought he would stay down, but he got up. And because he got up, you can too. That's what the woman in this story had to realize. She had fallen so many times that staying down started to feel like the only option. She had lost so much, hurt so deeply, that getting up felt impossible. She believed the lie that her strength was gone, that she wasn't capable of standing again. But then she found the gospel, and the gospel told her the truth. Her strength wasn't in herself, it was in God. And when she understood that, everything changed. She realized that strength isn't about never falling. Strength is about what you do after you fall. She realized that no matter how broken she felt, no matter how tired, no matter how much she had lost, God was still calling her to rise. Not in her own strength, but in His. And so she did. She got back up. Not because it was easy, not because the pain was suddenly gone, but because she refused to let life's hardships define her. She refused to believe that her story was over. She refused to let the weight of her past keep her from stepping into her future. And with every step she took forward, she grew stronger. Because strength isn't built in comfort. It's built in the struggle. It's built in the moments when you want to quit but choose to keep going. It's built in the moments when you say, this is hard, but I won't stop. It's built in the moments when you get up even when you don't feel like you can. That's real strength. That's the kind of strength the gospel gives. So let me ask you, where are you right now? Are you on the ground, believing that you can't get back up? Are you stuck in the weight of your past, convinced that you're too far gone? Are you standing at a crossroads, wondering if it's worth trying again? Because if you are, hear this. You can get back up, not because you have the strength on your own, but because the same God who raised Jesus from the dead, the same God who restored David, the same God who transformed Paul, that same God is with you. And if He is with you, then you are stronger than you think. So don't stay down. Rise again. Her story didn't end in brokenness because the gospel doesn't leave people where it finds them. Pain has a way of making people believe that their story is over. When life shatters, when loss feels unbearable, when failure weighs so heavy that it's hard to breathe, it's easy to think that this is it, that there's nothing left, that brokenness is the final chapter. But that's not how God works. The world will look at broken things and say they're worthless. It will tell you that if you've been hurt too many times, if you've lost too much, if you've made too many mistakes, there's no coming back. But the gospel tells a different story. Because the gospel doesn't leave people where it finds them. It meets them in their pain, but it doesn't let them stay there. Look at Joseph. He was betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and left for dead. If anyone had a reason to believe that his life was over, it was him. But his story didn't end in the pit. Look at Job. He lost everything, his family, his wealth, his health. He sat in the ashes of his life, broken and grieving. But his story didn't end in suffering. Look at Jesus. Beaten, crucified, laid in a tomb. The world thought it was finished. But his story didn't end in death, because God doesn't leave stories unfinished, and he didn't leave hers unfinished either. She had been through the fire. She had been hurt, abandoned, knocked down more times than she could count. She had believed for a long time that this was all her life would ever be, that she was too broken to be whole again. But then grace stepped in, and when grace enters a story, everything changes. She learned that God didn't just see her wounds, he could heal them. He didn't just see her failures, he could redeem them. He didn't just see her brokenness, he could restore her. Because the gospel is a story of restoration. It doesn't promise that life will never break you, but it does promise that brokenness is never the end of the story. And when she finally understood that, she started to see herself differently. She was no longer a woman defined by what she had lost. She was a woman defined by what God was restoring. She was no longer someone who had been left behind. She was someone God had never abandoned. She was no longer a victim of her past. She was walking into a future that God had written just for her. Because that's what happens when the gospel takes over a life. It doesn't erase the past, but it transforms it. It takes what was meant to destroy you and uses it to build something greater. It takes the pain and turns it into purpose. It takes the ashes and brings beauty from them. And that's exactly what happened to her. Her story didn't end in brokenness. It didn't end in sorrow. It didn't end in the fire. Her story ended in restoration. And the same can be true for you. Because no matter where you are right now, no matter how deep the hurt, no matter how shattered things may seem, God is not finished with you. If there is still breath in your lungs, your story is still being written. If you are still standing, there is still something greater ahead. And if you've been believing the lie that this is the end, that your pain is permanent, that your failure is final, that your heartbreak will never heal, it's time to stop believing that lie, because the gospel doesn't leave people in their brokenness. And your story isn't over yet. Now, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you've been through, but I do know this. If life has knocked you down, if you feel lost, if you think you can't get back up, you can. Not by your strength alone, but by the strength of the one who never left you. The gospel isn't just a book. It's not just a sermon. It's power. It's healing. It's the force that lifts you when the world tells you to stay down. So today you've got a choice. Stay down or rise up. Because if you have faith, even just a little, then believe me when I say you will rise again.